Right after the disaster hits, you need not a bureaucratic, procedural, red tape, anything. You need action.
For thousands of people suffering in the aftermath of Hurricane Hugo, action from the federal government couldn't come quick enough.
We got a bad government, that's all I can say. They're lying to the public.
This crowd's supposed to be geared up to get the help to the people, and they've absolutely been obstructionists.
With homes damaged by wind, rain, and storm surge, and no power for days or even weeks, people desperately sought help to meet their most basic needs of food, water, and shelter.
It's total chaos, really. Confusion. Where do we go? What do we do?
We appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot.
Volunteers answered the call. Local churches, the Red Cross, even everyday people drove across the country to help.
I feel the people down here need help, and I figured I wasn't doing nothing back home. I might as well come down and give them a hand.
I think any time a disaster hits in any way in the world, really, but especially in the United States, that the people, it's just the American way to want to come and help.
Even as supplies trickled in, the demand kept growing, and so did the lines. People waited for limited gas and rations that ran out before everyone could get help.
That is precious gas that they had to use to come here, to stand in line, to say that there's nothing.
No ice, the milk's going to be bad within a matter of hours.
In the end, help came from within. Neighbors helping neighbors made all the difference.
People are helping people. I mean, that's the only way we can get through it.
Oh, we've seen people so grateful. They're sharing, and it's just a community, fellowship community here.
God has his way of doing things and a way to bring us together.
Hurricane Hugo affected almost everyone in the Lowcountry in some way. Many lost their homes while others were struggling to find food and gas and power.
But that didn't stop many volunteers from helping their neighbors, even though their own lives were being affected after the storm.
Gail Bourne has spent most of her life serving and helping others.
That's basically been my whole career, is to how can I assist you? How can I help you? What can I do for you? So being with Red Cross is a natural for me.
It was that same push to serve that led Bourne to the Red Cross in 1986 to become a volunteer. Fast forward to '89, and Bourne would help after one of the biggest natural disasters the Charleston area had ever seen. She was assigned to do disaster assessment after Hurricane Hugo.
We went out in pairs, went house to house. Sometimes it was hard to match up the names and the numbers because a lot of the numbers were blown away. There's a lot of debris around.
Bourne's assessment area was in Charleston County, mainly in North Charleston, but her work also took her to some of the hardest hit areas as well. Areas like Johns Island, where houses were under trees and power lines were snapped like toothpicks.
Some people had structural damage and they just simply could not be in their houses. As far as damage, yeah, there was a lot of damage. It's just more than you can believe, like a war zone.
Longtime Red Cross volunteer Terry Cornerin says her mission to help during Hugo was as a shelter manager for North Charleston High School. She says one of at least 20 shelters the Red Cross opened up during the storm.
The thing I liked best about the shelter was the residents. They were nice, even though they were stressed.
At the height of the storm, Cornerin says her staff moved the more than 800 shelter residents from the gym into the high school for safety and better protection as the wind started howling and getting stronger.
Some of the residents decided to go into the stairwell, which the ceiling fell down on them.
Cornerin says thankfully all of the shelter residents were okay, and once the sun came up the next day, many went back to check the damage to their homes. She says her own home had some downed trees and shingles ripped off the roof and no power for weeks, but she says that was minor compared to the devastation she would see in other areas like where she grew up on Sullivan's Island.
I was in tears, and I just knew it'd be a while before we could get back there to visit. I think it took me about 2 years to get back over and look and see, what was left or what's been done to revitalize it.
Bourne and Cornerin say they never thought twice about volunteering and staying during the storm to help others.
Somebody has to be there. We're trained to be here.
30 years after the storm, Bourne says she still sees reminders of Hugo, but also signs of continued hope.
I saw McClellanville. I saw what the storm surge went through, That was devastating. The forest that we have now, occasionally if you ride 17, you'll see one tree far off in the distance is much higher than the rest. That's a Hugo survivor. All the other is new growth.
Volunteers were among the heroes during the storm, along with countless doctors and nurses who answered the call to duty during the Category 4 hurricane as it came in like a freight train.
Here at MUSC, the doctors stayed with their patients even during the worst of Hugo's fury. As some people hurried out of town, others raced to work.
My family packed up and left, went to Hollywood with my parents, and I came to the hospital.
Dr. Fred Crawford was chief of surgery at MUSC in 1989. He still remembers the evacuation warnings from the chair of Charleston County Council, Linda Lombard.
If you do not leave and you are stranded, you risk not only your own life, but those who are sent to rescue you.
And the look in her eyes told me all I needed to know. She was terrified.
The hospital immediately started planning for a worst-case scenario.
Everybody that conceivably could be discharged were discharged.
Other patients were transported to hospitals around the state.
That left us with a sort of a hardcore group of people who couldn't be transferred, and that's the sickest of the sick.
Patients, young and old, many in intensive care, braced for Hugo's arrival.
It really went from a very nervous, cautious look at the storm approaching, and then absolute pandemonium when the windows started breaking.
Dr. Fred Tecklenburg was on staff in the pediatric ICU when Hugo's wrath took hold.
Literally, as we walked through the doorway, the window broke open, and the wind and rain at 140, 150 miles an hour started coming into the ICU. One infant literally was being blown by the wind in their crib.
We had to move all their patients from their rooms out into the hallways.
Nurse manager Rhonda Flynn remembers the moment the eye of Hugo passed and the moment the backside of the storm approached.
The fear that we were all living under, wondering if the building could take another hit of the storm. It was very scary.
Well, there was a point about that time that I didn't know whether we were going to make it or not. The hospital was vibrating with the wind.
The hospital lost power. The generators failed, leaving patients and staff in the dark.
Someone had the foresight to give out about hundreds and hundreds of flashlights. For several hours, we were hand ventilating patients by flashlight.
After surviving the night, the morning delivered a harsh wake-up call. The damage was widespread, and the tough part of their job was just beginning.
I was at the hospital for another 2 days before I could leave. So I didn't know what my home looked like. I couldn't reach my husband.
It was close to a month, 6 weeks before we were back, to normal, if you can say normal.
I think it's a one-in-a-lifetime, I hope, situation, particularly for a hospital.
Dr. Tecklenburg, who is the current Charleston mayor's brother, by the way, credits everyone in the building for coming together to help the hospital recover and help the Lowcountry heal.